Welcome to the second video overview of Module 5, Reasoning. Here, in this video, we will be looking at argument. The word argument has a very specific meaning in critical thinking. It does not mean a violent disagreement or even a disagreement. It simply means a set of reasons that are given in support of a conclusion. An argument is not always easy to recognize, let alone analyze as to whether it is a good argument or not. But it is crucial that we be able to do so if we're going to think critically and well. Different kinds of arguments. First, let's look at three meanings of because. That is, the stone is warm because the sun is shining. Or the angle alpha must be 45 degrees because the other angles in this triangle are so many degrees, and so forth. Among these meanings, there is first the physical relation between cause and effect, two, the logical relation between premise and conclusion, and three, the psychological relation between motive and act. The first one is easily understood. I will die because of cancer. There will be an eclipse of the sun today because of the position of the moon, etc. Here, we're talking about a physical relation between cause and effect. The second one is more abstract, though no less real. I will die because I am human, and all humans are mortal. There must be an afterlife because there must be an ultimate justice, etc. Here we have a logical relationship between ideas, one that is asserted to be necessary. The third, or psychological relation, gives us a subjective motive for reaching a conclusion. I will die today because I am feeling despair. You think public assistance is bad because you are wealthy and privileged, etc. Thus, as quoting Krefft, the first because, that is the physical relation between cause and effect, is objective and material. The second, the logical relation between premise and conclusion, is objective and immaterial. That is, logical relations are objective. They do not depend on my subjective feelings or my subjective opinions. Either the conclusion necessarily follows from what is given or it does not. But it's immaterial. That is, it's something that is purely intellectual or mental. The third is subjective and immaterial. This, of course, is the psychological relation, which is purely subjective, but also immaterial because it is in the realm of ideas and feelings and so forth. Confusing the psychological because for the logical because is a very common fallacy today. To quote Krefft, you do not logically refute an idea by pointing to suspicious motives, but by pointing to inadequate evidence. Freud's theories about morality and religion are, for example, classic examples of this fallacy, such as Freud's assertion that religion is simply an infantile projection onto the universe of a father figure. This is, of course, a fallacious use of because. The four causes. These were first outlined and explained by the Greek philosopher Aristotle. These causes are the formal cause. This is the cause of what a thing is. It is the nature or essence or essential nature of the thing, and of course this entails certain effects. For example, this oak has roots because it is a tree. The nature of a tree is to have roots, therefore this is the cause of the oak having roots. We should be able to communicate with aliens if they are rational, because to be rational is to have language, etc. Then there's the material cause. This refers to the stuff out of which something is made or comes into being. The oak will burn because it's made of wood. Water is 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. All human beings are vulnerable because we're flesh and bone, etc. This refers, of course, to what is entailed by the thing being made out of a certain material. Third is the efficient cause. This is the agent that makes, moves, or changes the being of something. For example, I am here because of my parents. My parents, basically moved me into being. This book is here because of the author. All life on earth is because of the sun, etc. Then there is the final cause. This refers to the end, goal, or purpose of something, whether this purpose is conscious or not, and whether the thing is artificial or natural. I walk so that I can be healthier. So here you have a purpose. The chair is here because we need to sit. The book was published to inform the public. Trees like oaks serve a vital function in the ecosystem because they release oxygen into the air. I want to do well in school because I want to get a good job. I want to get a good job because I want to have a family. I want to have a family because I want to be happy. I want to be happy because, here of course is implied that this chain of final causes must come to an end at some end which is, well, desired for its own sake and not for something else. Classification of arguments. We can classify arguments by form. Arguments may be made by either immediate inference or mediate inference. Immediate inference arguments contain only one premise. They include opposition, aversion, conversion, and contraposition, which we have looked at before. Immediate inference arguments may be either deductive or inductive. Deductive arguments are usually syllogisms. Syllogisms can be either simple syllogisms or compound syllogisms, which may be divided into disjunctive, hypothetical, and conjunctive syllogisms. We will be, in this course, looking later at simple syllogisms. We can classify arguments by causality. Arguments can be divided between those from cause to effect or arguments from effect to cause. An example of an argument from cause to effect is the castle is made of strong stone, therefore it will last for centuries. An example of an argument from effect to cause is the castle has lasted for centuries, the effect, therefore it must be made of strong stone, the cause. 2. By direction of movement. We may move from premises to conclusion or from conclusion back to premises. By length. That's pretty self-explanatory. By strategy. An argument can be either linear or it can be cumulative. A linear argument is in which you give premises for a conclusion, which then that conclusion forms the premise of another argument, and so forth and so on, building up a chain. Whereas a cumulative argument is if you use a whole host of separate, different reasons to arrive at a conclusion that don't necessarily link together, but they have a cumulative effect. So you can pile on a dozen different arguments for a position, even though individually none of those premises may be related. Together they may have a cumulative effect of at least seeing how the weight of evidence is towards a certain conclusion. Deduction is usually defined as moving from the more general to the more particular. Induction is moving from the more particular to the more general. But these definitions are too simple. One can come up with examples of a deductive argument moving from general or universal premises to a general or universal conclusion. Likewise, there are inductive arguments that move from particular premises to particular conclusions. Thus, the biggest difference between the two is that the premises of induction come from observation and sense experience, which is always of individual cases, while the premises of deduction come from intellectual understanding, which always involves the grasp of a universal, usually necessary truth. Thus, the example that Krefft uses is that an inductive argument, a classic example of this is, I see 1, 2, 3, 100 white swans, therefore I reach the conclusion by induction that all swans are white. This is from observation and sense experience. Whereas in a deduction, all human beings are mortal. Socrates is a human being, therefore Socrates is mortal, comes from an intellectual understanding of the nature of human beings as inherently mortal. And so actually we can, obviously this does involve some sort of observation and sense experience, but it involves another step, which is that of intellectual intuition into the nature or essence of what a human being is. And part of that is to be rational, to have language, but also to be mortal. Thus, in many arguments, deduction and induction are combined. The most paradigmatic example of this is that of Socrates and the Socratic method. Socrates' arguments usually proceed through a mixture of deductive and inductive reasoning, usually going through the following 5 steps. First, a question arises. For example, is it true that political justice is simply the advantage of the stronger? Second, we look at examples of justice. The doctor heals and improves the weak man. A teacher instructs the ignorant, etc. Third, we make an inductive generalization on the basis of these examples. It seems that justice is in the interest of the weaker, not the stronger. 4, we then try to understand the necessity of this universal. This is where deduction comes in. What is it about the essence or nature of justice whereby it's always about helping the weaker and making the weak strong. Finally, we have the application of the universal to the particular by deduction. Since justice is what makes the weak strong, so political justice must do the same. Thus concludes our video. Thank you.